Hey, what's going on? This is Ranger X back here on Final Cut. So, my man Monta Ellis, I think a lot of people are not giving him his due credit for his contributions to the Warriors in their last couple championship teams. Basically, my man Monta Ellis, he is the reason that the Warriors are as successful as they are today, and no one can take that from him. They won 3 out of the 4 last chips. They just acquired one more NBA superstar and Boogie Cousins, even though I think that's something that we're going to touch on that later. But that's something that everybody shouldn't be going crazy over. Right now, they look invincible to a lot of people. They're really not. Every team has weakness, no matter what. Every team has a weakness. But the Golden State Warriors, man, I think a lot of people have just written them off as this team who just gets whatever they want, however they want. And that's not really the case, because over the last 10 years, if you watch them, they're homegrown. As they've really just built everything from ground up. So I mean, we're gonna start with 2008, 2009. We're gonna go back to the roots, and we're gonna look at how my man Monta Ellis. So everybody in Golden State Warriors, y'all can thank Monta. He's the reason that you guys are as successful as you are today. And we're gonna go back to 2008, 2009 season. We're gonna figure out why. So back in the 08-09 season, Warriors, they were about 29-53. Right, their best player, their leading player, was Monta Ellis. After this, and during this season, the season before that, it was discovered that he had an injury. I think he had an ankle injury. Yeah, he had an ankle injury. And then after this, it was this season that they figured this out. This man Monta Ellis was discovered to have lied about the ankle injury, not about the injury itself, not the fact that he got injured, but it was how he injured himself is what he lied about. And his story was that he injured it while he was in the gym, and it turns out that he was not in the gym. And the Warriors were looking into seeing, whether or not it was a breach of contract. But the fact that he lied about how he acquired his injury just showed that he wasn't taking the game seriously, man. And it also, just in terms of his efficiency on the court, it already wasn't high. And then we look at the terrible decision making, things like that, the lack of accountability. That really was the incident that really was the incident that just showed that Monta, he's really not capable, or he wasn't capable of leading the team. And that's the summer that they drafted Curry. I'm gonna do a video on this. I really don't understand that draft. The Timberwolves, they had 2 chances to get him. They had 2 motherfucking chances to get this man at point guard, and they did not. But at least one of them turned out decent. The other one, he faded off into obscurity. But in 2009-2010 season, right, with the Warriors, they went from, the first year they were 29-53, and the second year they were 26-56, and they took a little step backwards because they acquired a rookie point guard, and there was a little bit of struggle right there when they started playing. They ended up for both years, right? For both years in terms of points per game, they were second in the league. However, in opponent points per game defense, they were last. And their pace was first in both those years. And their lead player, once again, was Monta Ellis. But let me just say this right now. Stephen Curry, he almost shot 50, 40, 90 as a rookie. All right, so out of the gates, he came out as a much more efficient player, than Monta Ellis was, just across the board in terms of how he fit in the system. They're trying to run a high-paced offense, and it is really hard to run a high-paced offense with someone like Monta, who dribbles so much and holds the ball for so long, to get his numbers. They had a really good system, but it was the wrong pieces outside of Curry. So we're gonna move on to the 2010-2011 year. This is when they jumped up to about 36-46. Modest development, pretty good development. Their points per game, they dropped it to about 7th place. Opponent points per game was about 27th place. Pace was about 5th. And their leading players at the time were Monta and Steph. And this man, Steph, once again, he was just literally so close. He was about 2% in terms of field goal percentage. He was about 2% away from 50, 40, 90. And it's just like, I really want everyone to understand the first 2 years that Steph Curry came into the league, he almost had 50, 40, 90 in both of those seasons, right? Playing alongside an inefficient player. When you play alongside inefficient players, you usually get bad shots, right? So when this year, they acquired Darrell Wright. And what Darrell Wright showed them, basically for the summer following, kind of like a preview for Clay, he showed them what having a 3-and-D player would look like in that rotation, in the system they're trying to run, which is that high-paced offense what a 3-and-D player would look like. And this is basically just a preview for Klay Thompson. And they were just coming closer and closer to the realization while watching Monte and Steph play together that Monte's just stagnating the offense. Like, they already figured out he can't be their lead player. That's why they drafted Steph Curry. But they also figured out that he cannot work in that system. So the year after that, 2011, 2012, they dropped down pretty badly. 23 from 36 and 46 to 23 and 43. But this is because Steph, he got injured. He was injured the whole season. He was only able to play like 26 games. Hence the lack of the progression from the 2010-2011 season. But, you know, in the 2011 season, they did draft Klay Thompson, round 1, pick 11. Their lead players that year were David Lee and Monta Ellis. Pace-wise, you know, they finished around 10th place. They lost a little bit of pace. They also lost some offensive output. But they did drop in defensive efficiency as well. But I'm telling you, that 2011, 2012 season, they made a lot of jumps forward that weren't in the record, that weren't in the official record. Because you got big acquisitions such as like Andrew Bogut, you know, who became a very key defensive player for them. You know, then they got the 2012 second-round pick, which ended up becoming Draymond Green, while they dealt away Monta Ellis, Ekpe Udoh, and Kwame Brown. And they got Kwame Brown off their books. And they also later on, they traded away Richard Jefferson and TJ Ford for a conditional 2012 first-round pick, which I believe ended up being Festus Ezeli or Harrison Barnes, one of the two. But that 2012 draft, that was thick for them. They got Festus. All three of those players ended up becoming champions. Harrison Barnes, Festus Ezeli, Draymond Green. That 2012 draft was thick for them. So they really upgraded a lot during that 2012 season, that 2011-2012 season. And as you can see, in the 2012-2013 season, they jumped from being 23 and 43 while Steph was gone. They were making all those changes to 47 and 35 in the West. And their points per game, they're about 7th, but their opponent points per game, they jumped from 28th to 19th. And their pace went up to 4th. Right, and this is like the first year that Steph Curry was their lone lead player, right? And this is the first year where everything kind of just came together into a winning season. So my man Steph, this man broke the single season 3-pointer record. I think Ray Allen had it before he broke it. And this is when kind of the Splash Brothers were coming to prominence, man. This is when they started making their name. They beat in the first round, they beat Denver. I remember that series, a pretty good series. There's also a lot of scouting going on with Iguodala. Iguodala was basically, you know, letting them know that he didn't really like how his team was playing Steph. A lot of dirty play going on. You know, Iguodala was basically letting them know that stuff. And they like Iguodala, man. They saw what he could do. He's a very good switchblade type of player. They wanted to bring him over, and they courted him. The second round, though, they did lose to the Spurs 4-2. They went down in, you know, game 6. That's pretty impressive because the Spurs pushed the Heat that year to 7 games. So their draft, man, that 2012 draft was showing promise because right after they came in, Draymond, Harrison Barnes, and Festus Ezeli, they were all contributing immediately, you know, and Steph was leading them. So, I mean, then we're going to go to the 2013-2014 season. This was a little bit of this was a tough season for them because they got better. They went to 51-31, and they made a jump in terms of defense. They went from 19th place to 6th place, right, in terms of opponent points per game. And in points, you know, they slid down a little bit. They went from like 7th to 10th. But they really made a jump in terms of their defensive output. Their pace was still about the same, about 6th place in the league in comparison to 4th from the year before. Their lead player, once again, was Steph Curry. But this was the first year they had with Iguodala, man. It was a sign and trade, I believe. And they made substantial progress from the previous year. I mean, this shit was crazy. Literally, you could tell, man. You could tell that they were just moving so much smoother with each other. The only thing is they ran into the Clippers that first round. That was a tough series. They lost to them boys in 7. That was a tough series. They had no draft picks for 2013. Forgot to mention that before. They had no draft picks for 2013. But they fired head coach Mark Jackson because it was just really clear that their offense it wasn't hitting that maestro level yet that you see now. To where these boys, they're so good, they don't even need plays. They just run the game fluidly now, and that's the piece they were missing before. You know, Jackson, he brought defensive presence, but I'm telling you that offensive nuance, it was needed to bring the Warriors to that next level. So when they brought on Steve Kerr, they went from 51-31 the year before, which is a really good record in the West, to 67 and motherfucking 15. That's crazy. All right, that's crazy. Points per game, they were first place. They dropped in terms of defensive efficiency to 15th place, but that doesn't really matter during the regular season because during the postseason they played good defense. They played great defense, especially Draymond. Their pace was first place in the league. They were playing just fast basketball, man. This is his first year. Their lead player was Chef Curry, not Steph Curry. That shit was Chef Curry, all right? That boy was cooking the whole year. That shit James Harden be doing, he was cooking the whole... Steph was cooking people the whole year. This was his MVP year. He averaged like 23, 7, on like almost 50% shooting. It was crazy. He broke his own record from the year before on the single season threes. Not the year before, the 2012-2013 season, I believe. He broke the record from then. This is the first year that Iguodala came off the bench. I think Kerr, he saw that from the beginning that Iguodala probably should just come off the bench. Iguodala started 0 games that year, and he was their Finals MVP. So let's just think about how good their system is to where they figured out that this player, he's so not suited for starting with that first squad, but he was still the most impactful player in the playoffs coming off the bench. That's the thing with this team this year. This is when everything culminated together and they finally won the title. Klay Thompson, this man, this was the year that everybody was like, yo, is it him or James Harden? Everybody was wondering if it was him or James Harden that's now like the top shooting guard in the league. So he was definitely top 3 shooting guard in the league at the time. Still is. They won a franchise record 67 games. Let's just get that in our head. I think they're only like the 10th team in NBA history to win at least 67 games. Like, that shit is crazy, man. They were NBA champions that year, man. That's the goal. They won They won a championship, like 6 years after drafting Steph Curry? 6 years. That's great progress. That's great pace, especially considering that they lost 1 year of his due to injury. That's great pace. But with Iguodala, he was the Finals MVP. Him and the Warriors, they basically baited LeBron into shooting very inefficiently. I think that's why they gave him the MVP, even though Steph really probably deserved it. They baited LeBron into playing into their hands. Because really the Warriors, this was their first year of being serious. And LeBron, with his championship, maturity in terms of how many times he's been there, he could have easily, if he did what he was supposed to do, the Cavs should have won that series, even though he didn't have the star power. Because the Warriors were neophytes. This was like their first time in a real pressure cooker, this deep in the playoffs. Let's go to the next year. The next year is really where I just don't understand. These boys blew everybody out the water. They went 73-9 2015-2016. They broke the Bulls record by a game. They went the 96-97 Bulls. These boys went 73-9. Their pace was second place in the league. I think second to the Rockets only, because the Rockets play that ridiculous just threes and layups shit. They just throw up threes from half court, and they just keep shooting them shit. So they don't even care if the shot is open or not. But Chef Curry was cooking these boys again. But this year, this is probably the most dominant year I've seen like a guard have in a long time, since Wade, since Kobe. I mean, this was a dominant year, man. Even that, this might even be more impressive, but they didn't win, so I can't put it above theirs. But this motherfucker, his second MVP year, this is the year he won unanimous MVP. Man averaged he won the scoring title and led the league in steals. Won the scoring title, led the league in steals. He set a new record of 3-pointers that was his before that he broke. This is his second time breaking his own record, right? But his record before was 286 threes in the year. This motherfucker hit 402 3-pointers that year. That's almost 5 threes a game, bro. Come on, my nigga. Come on, dude. Come on, dude. Dude was averaging the most steals in the league, even though I think he was gambling a lot. And he never plays the best guard. They always have Klay on the best guard. My man still led the league in steals and scoring, and his team had the best record. Come on now. My man had a 50, 40, 90 season that year on leading the league in scoring. He's like the 7th player ever to do this. Like, in terms of just having a 50, 40, 90 season. He's like the 7th player, I believe. Come on, man. That year was ridiculous for Curry. Like, and the crazy thing is, they came back on the Thunder 3-1, and they lost 3-1 in the finals, not because of basketball, just because of a whole bunch of stupid shit that they were doing. Like, I remember when I was watching this, I was like, damn, man, the Cavs are just literally getting everything rolling their way. Now, like, I wasn't going for either of them, man. I don't do all that. I just watched the game. But this man Curry got injured during the first round. He never fully recovered from that. Then Iguodala had motherfucking back spasms. And then Bogut was out. And then this man Draymond got suspended during for Game 5 for his donkey antics during Game 4. Man was donkey of the day, man. This shit looks so... And he says it himself, too. These are his words. He knows he's the reason they lost. He knows he's the reason they lost that year. Really, they should have had 4 chips. They should have beaten LeBron every single year. They gave LeBron that championship that year. So the Warriors, that's on them. They didn't close it out. They didn't close it out properly. That's on them. The 2016 year. But the 2016-2017 year, they re-up. Because the year before, let's just say this right now, Harrison Barnes, good little player, good player. But he was missing everything in the finals, right? And KD is no Harrison Barnes, all right? Let's get that clear. These boys they dropped from 73-9 to 67-15. That's the kind of drop I want to have, to where I'm still hitting records. 67-15. They were first place in points. They were 11th place in defense, 4th place in terms of pace. Their lead player, it was arguable. It was either Chef Curry or KD. You know, it's whatever you want. Really, I think it was a partnership. They have 4 All-Stars this year instead of 3. They have 4. However, 3 of them were homegrown, and the last one that they had that year got signed on a free agency contract. So nobody can say that yada yada. They pulled some Olympic bullshit. 3 of them boys were drafted there. All right, you can't say that. So my man KD came over along with JaVale McGee. JaVale McGee played a big part in their championships, believe it or not. Draymond Green was Defensive Player of the Year this year, I believe. And they just murdered the Cavaliers during the finals. This shit was ridiculous, man. KD was just dropping all kinds of bombs in LeBron's eyes. LeBron walking out that motherfucking game with a towel wiping his damn eye, man. Shit was ridiculous. But 2017, 2018, I mean, they were champs that year too, so that's 2 chips now. But 2017, 2018, these boys, oh my God. Literally, they won 58 games, and considering their talent level, they underwhelmed because they really should have won like 60 plus. But they were like conserving themselves for the playoffs. And everyone was talking about the Rockets possibly dethroning them and yada yada. Let's just say this right now. If Andre Iguodala does not get injured, Warriors in 5. Period. Warriors in 5. If Andre Iguodala does not get injured, Warriors in 5. Chris Paul, that motherfucker, and LeBron James, they are both on PEDs. Look it up. I promise you, everything lines up. I'll do a video on that later. But both of them motherfuckers on PEDs. All right, let's just say that right now. So Chris Paul pulling the hammy, I don't look at that as, you know, if and buts with candy and nuts, we don't have a Merry Christmas. Like, get the fuck out of here. All right, let's just say that right now, because you could say that same shit for the Warriors if they had Iguodala. It came down to it, they lost. That's simple. The Cavaliers got a gentleman's sweep from these boys during the finals. It was a gentleman's sweep. And the reason I don't feel bad for them at all, right? My man AI was at least able to steal a game from the Lakers. Those Lakers, those boys are competing for best team ever. All right, they're in that class. Shaq and Kobe, that team, they're competing with the '86 Celtics, you know, the some of the '80s Lakers teams, you know, the '90s Bulls teams. They're competing with those boys for like best team ever, right? So I really don't feel bad for this man LeBron not being able to steal the game. Like, my man AI stole the game from Shaq and Kobe. Come on now, at home. Them boys were at home when he stole that game, right? So these boys are NBA champions this year, and let's just say this right now, with DeMarcus Cousins signing, yeah, these boys won 3 chips in a row, but as we just saw when we ran through that whole sequence, right? These boys did everything naturally. They have a system. Their system is to be free-flowing, play fast-paced offense that's under control, always looking for the open shot, and everyone is unselfish, right? You can't knock that. That's their system that they implemented many years ago, about 10 years ago. They tried to implement the system. They toyed around with it play with the kinks. You're just mad that your team isn't the Warriors. Tell the other teams to get on their level, man. Get their game up. Tell them to get their game up. It's that simple. Like, if you look at the 2018-2019 season, them acquiring Boogie Cousins might actually hurt them, right? Because this man's coming off of an Achilles injury. And we're just going to go through some notable players that had Achilles injuries. We got Isaiah Thomas, Billups, that's Chauncey Billups if you guys don't know, Elton Brand, Kobe Bryant. There was a guy from Duke. He actually played in the NBA. He was decent, but he was great at Duke. Christian Laettner. I'm just saying, so many of these players, they saw huge dips in production when they came back after their Achilles injury. There's only like one player I can think of off the top of my head that did not, and that was Dominique. This man, Dominique Wilkins, literally, I was reading through some articles and I was able to pull this quote up. He stated, "I worked my ass off. I knew all the statistics said that my chances weren't good, but you can't measure heart and desire. How bad do you want it? Just like with my career, I never took nights off. I rehab harder and harder." End quote. And I'm not trying to knock this man, for his hard work. I'm sure he worked really hard to get into it, and he was just a physical freak of nature. He had 2 more great seasons after his Achilles injuries after he started declining in production. But he did have it in his early 30s. That's reasonable. But Kobe was a hard worker, man. Everybody knows Kobe was a hard worker. Isaiah was a hard worker. Chauncey Billups. The other 2, Elton Brand and Christian Laettner that I listed, who knows? But those 3 players were really hard workers, man. And I'm sure they wanted to play as well. And when they got their injuries, that was it. And none of them had the weight on their Achilles that Boogie Cousins has. Boogie Cousins, that's a big boy. All right, that's a big boy. So all that weight on his Achilles, who knows how he's affected right now. But the Warriors are not as invincible as you may think. Them signing him, and they lost JaVale McGee, as I mentioned earlier. When they signed JaVale McGee, he does a lot for them, or he did a lot for them. They lost him this summer to the Lakers. So them really not having a solid big man, hey, that could become an Achilles heel during the playoffs. A team could take advantage of that. A team with a Clint Capella, or a team with an Anthony Davis, or a team with a JaVale McGee. Somebody who's big. All they have to do is just make dunks. Especially if you have a player like Anthony Davis, who's actually dominant in terms of skill as well. Whew. Man, the Warriors, if the team is playing them right and they play that grit and grind game, they could be in danger of losing. All right. So never think that a team is invincible. This is very homegrown. And I just want to bring it all back to my man, Monta Ellis. Without Monta Ellis lying about his little ankle injury, right, and just being an inefficient player, the Warriors would never have adapted. There are so many teams that hitch onto a player for 5-6 years. They did not. That story came up, in 2008, 2009, when they got word that he lied about, he admitted about lying about his injury. 2-3 years later, he's gone. They ain't playing that shit. You got to go, man. You're not even fitting in our offense. You're not fitting our offense or our defense, and then you're going to be lying. No accountability. You can't be our leader. You can't even be a cog in the wheel. It's time to go. All right, so, man, the Warriors, they definitely should thank Ellis for that, because without that, they might not have drafted Steph Curry, and that wouldn't have gotten the ball rolling. Right, so it's been real. I'll catch another episode of Final Cut. Peace.